Crown Castle will lead the discussion. Really is, working with local leaders, mayors, those who really make the decisions and help not just for the rubber to meet the road, but the broadband to meet the home, the business, and to get where it needs to go. So this is going to be a very helpful, informative panel. Van, if you'd like to come up, introduce yourself, introduce your panel, and we look forward to hearing from y'all. Thank you.
Thanks, Chip. All right. Y'all panelists can come on out when you get your mics. I'm Van Blois, Managing Counsel at Crown Castle. Thanks for having us. We have a really wonderful panel. Want to just give a quick introduction, and we have a little video explaining some of the technology that we've been working with at Crown Castle that we're super excited about. And then we're going to chat with our panelists who are representatives from local governments throughout the United States that have worked with us, worked with other providers to bring broadband to their communities, which is something that we've all talked about in the context of federal funding. It's on everyone's minds, and my panel will help us explain how that rubber meets the road when we get to local jurisdictions and need to get approvals for our deployments. So at Crown, we recognize the need to innovate in ways that connect communities faster and with less disruption than ever before, which led us to the development of a technology that we call Rapid Connect. It's a simplified construction process designed to combat the digital divide and meet connectivity demands quickly and efficiently. So I'm thrilled to be with this group of experts who are committed to ensuring that their communities have access to these technologies and infrastructure that's needed to thrive in today's digital world. Each of our panelists have seen these new broadband projects deployed in their communities. I'm excited to talk with them today about their experiences and their insights. So we'll start with the quick video, if that's ready to go.
At Crown Castle, we've been in business for over 30 years, and we own and operate telecommunications assets, including towers, small cells, and fiber. We serve our government customers, our communities, and our wireless carriers by providing the infrastructure needed for connectivity. We connect everything and everyone. Connecting our communities is really at the core of what our infrastructure supports. It's so important for communities today to have access to broadband and wireless connectivity, and that comes in all forms. Rapid Connect is our new innovative way to deploy fiber. Rapid Connect is a one-pass process that cuts, places, and seals fiber at the surface of the roadway. It's cleaner, it's faster, and it's safer. There's been such an increase in the demand for data, and that's only growing. We're seeing trends where data demand is increasing by 150% through 2029. And as that data demand increases, and how time-consuming the construction is, having a tool like Rapid Connect available to be able to streamline the process and get people connected quickly is going to be really important. We're building all over the country, and there's often a lot of disruption with construction. In DC, we were in and out before anyone even noticed that we were there, which minimized the disruption, and we had zero complaints. Rapid Connect is a great tool to connect underserved communities. There's lots of difficult to reach areas or places where the construction cost is just prohibitive, or those projects are just going to take years to complete. Rapid Connect creates that predictability, shortens the schedule, and it makes the broadband dollars go further, which is a really important mission when we're thinking about spending those dollars to connect all of our communities together. This is an opportunity where every dollar really matters, and being able to connect our most rural communities is going to mean that we're going to need to be creative in how we think about broadband deployment. We've seen a lot of success leveraging Rapid Connect for our own networks, and we think now is the right time to be able to broaden that use case to support others who are building networks to connect their communities.
So we've heard a lot at the summit today about the historic levels of federal funding that there's for broadband in the pipeline. As I mentioned, I have the privilege of being joined by some of the local government representatives who will see a lot of the impact from that federal funding. And they represent different sectors of local government. We have an elected official, an engineer, and a town manager who bring their diverse experiences here to talk with you today. So I'm joined to my right by the mayor of the city of Alexandria, Virginia, Aaliyah Gaskins. Nazila Cruz, civil engineer for the city of Los Angeles, and Bruce Gardner, town manager for Queen Creek, Arizona. Why don't we start with Mayor Gaskins? If each of you could introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your experience with broadband deployment thus far.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's such a joy and an honor to be with you today. As was said, I am Mayor Aaliyah Gaskins, and I am serving in my first term as mayor, having been sworn in on January 2nd. So a little bit over 3 months into the job. Prior to serving as mayor, I served on the city council. And as a member of the council, really making sure that we were investing in broadband and in our infrastructure was a top priority. I think anyone who's familiar with Alexandria knows that a conversation we've been having for decades is how do we expand competition? How do we work with private companies and entities to make sure that all of our residents not only have access, but they have service that is reliable, service that is fast, and the service that they need for their jobs, for their work, and that our children need to do their homework in school. I would say in terms of my experience thus far, I think it's really kind of focused on two things. First and foremost, Alexandria is unique in the state in that we own a lot of our roadways. And so when we think about policy making, we think about what are the things that we can control. And so we have been able to create a number of franchise and licensing agreements with different companies in order to be able to kind of speed up deployment within our city and to be able to create agreements that also allow us to put in equity goals and things to move forward with our digital literacy plans. And then I would say sort of the other piece has been it's one thing to have a plan, it's one thing to have an agreement, but if we don't have the permitting, if we don't have the speed, and we don't have sort of the relationships between our staff and private industry, it's really hard for those plans to become a reality. And so the other piece has been working with, companies in this room, but also working with our staff to kind of understand what's our permitting process like, where do people get stuck, and what are the things that as a council we can help invest in the capacity that's needed in order to accelerate this work.
Thank you. Nazila.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be part of this panel. My name is Nazila Cruz. I'm a civil engineer working for Bureau of Engineering, City of Los Angeles. My main responsibility is to manage utility permit. We call it utility excavation permit. So basically, I directly work with utility companies and telecommunication companies and assist them in permitting in City of Los Angeles when they want to lay fiber in City of Los Angeles right away. I'm also heavily involved in coordination with different departments and assisting utility companies with coordination with different departments, because imagine how complex could be permitting in cities such as Los Angeles. And I've been a lead staff on the Crown Castle work with City of Los Angeles. And one of the main staff that working on any kind of new technology that comes to City of Los Angeles, we review, we permit, I assist in establishing standards and basically clear guidelines in permitting. As part of the broadband expansion, our goal is definitely to expand the broadband in underserved communities in Los Angeles, which is a big goal. And we wanted to also reduce the impact on the community because, we're public servers and nothing is more important than our constituents to be happy. So we're constantly looking into how to efficiently and also how to efficiently do this and also be more to expedite the process of expanding this broadband.
Great. Bruce.
All right. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I appreciate this is my first time with INCOMPAS. So from my level, I'm learning a lot, especially at the federal and state levels, and more about the BEAD program. The town of Queen Creek in Arizona, you may not know where that is. It's about 35 miles southeast of Phoenix. It's the fastest growing community in Arizona the last 10 years. And it's the third fastest growing in the nation, behind a couple, I think, cities in Texas. And so you look at that growth. We are also one of the most affluent communities in Arizona. The only issue that I've been facing is we've had no fiber in the community. And so what does that mean for some of our residents? They can't play their video games, watch a video, and also do some other things in their house. Their parents can't reach their children when they're out in the what we call our marketplace because the cellular is not working or it's overcapacitated. These are the type of concerns that we've received over the last few years. So it's been a real journey for me the last 4 years to try to get to the point that we're at. 3 years ago, I was trying to focus in how can we get fiber and some increased capacity and coverage in their cellular into the community. I had a wise person come to me from the industry and saying, you're not partnering with the industry. And he kind of listed out a lot of things that I just recently learned INCOMPAS created, a Broadband Ready Checklist, and the industry individual kind of mentioned all those things that we needed to do. So that's what we've been working on the last 3 years. And because of those efforts, we've actually have had our first fiber company come in the community. We have Crown Castle that's also coming in, and I have 3 others ready to come in looking for license agreements. So this partnership with the industry actually works a lot, but there's things from the municipal standpoint that we have to do in order for that investment to come in. And hopefully I could share that with you, some of the successes that we've had the last 3 years.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about the how a city can be broadband ready. INCOMPAS worked to create the Broadband Ready Cities Checklist that others have talked about earlier today. How do you all think communities can make themselves more competitive for broadband funding and position themselves in such a way as to be ready to receive that federal funding? Bruce, if you want to start, you're on a roll there. So
sure. So thanks. One thing I've learned, and this is something for the industry, is who are you speaking to about entry into the community? You actually have to flip the pyramid upside down, is what I say. So if you look at on top of the pyramid in municipalities, you have the mayor and the elected officials. You have the town manager. In my situation, you have the city engineer who Nazilla works for. Those are the individuals that you need to start with. Don't start with the engineer that's down in the organization, as I called it. And it's not a negative. Don't take this negative. But Tiger Stadium at LSU. Anyone from LSU? When you walk in there, they have a statement that says something to the effect that all that enter here, your dreams come to die. You don't want to start somewhere where your dreams die, as an industry. So the individuals that are listening to the community are the elected officials. That's where they start. It's the town manager who I report to. That's where they start. That's the way you get your in. So that's what happened in Queen Creek. Once I got from my council and the mayor information that we need to improve these services, that's how you change policy. That's how you change the standards. You can't expect an engineer to change a standard or a policy because that's not their job. Their job is to protect the infrastructure. The people that change the policy is the elected officials and the town manager. So that's something that I talk about that helps improve. I have some other things, but I'll share later.
Yeah, Mayor Gaskins or Nazila, do you want to weigh in on ways that communities can make themselves more competitive?
Sure. So I guess I would just lift up, I think it's also the partnerships that you start to build. Once a month, my council members and we're usually voting on whether or not to approve if a department within our city can apply for a grant. That might be to local community organizations and foundations. That might be state grants or federal grants as well. And as I go through those, almost every grant is looking at, well, who else are you partnering with? And also every grant is not designed to solve everything. So I think about if we're thinking about digital literacy. We have certain partners like Computer Core, which is a nonprofit in our city, where we have worked over decades to build a relationship with them so that when we go for grants, we're going with them. We know that they have a much better relationship with members in the community. They're more trusted than sometimes government is. And so they are the right partner to help us deliver that sort of piece of our digital equity plan. We know that when we're looking at things, we have We have a device loaner program where people can come and they can check out laptops, but they can also check out mobile hotspots. We know that we've had to identify different partners for that type of program. We have partners in our schools and our libraries, but also in our faith-based institutions to be able to think through where are the places where people need access to this program? How do we bring the devices to them? And how do we set up something that's as easy as possible for people to check out? We also know that if we're looking at things like expanding our municipal fiber network, that's a whole different set of partnerships. So I guess I would just say that every grant's not going to do everything, and there may be different things that you want to position yourself to be competitive to, and starting to build the groundwork of who are the partners for the different pieces of your multi-pronged approach is really important. So when it comes time for the application, or it comes time to broker one of these deals, you're already in a position to say, we're ready and we've got the people who are ready to go, and we're a great investment for you.
For City of Los Angeles, we've learned that the focus should be on the digital, basically equity. Everyone should have access to equal network connections. And then there are many communities in LA, low-income communities, underserved communities, that they don't have access to reliable network connection. And then we basically mapped out those communities, and we sat down and we just say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to provide this connectivity? And obviously, we had conventional excavation methods that utility companies have used for many years. But we sat down and we looked into more advanced technologies. We've been doing macro trenching since 2020, and I think it's been a couple of years I've been piloting the Rapid Connect with Crown Castle. These type of methodologies, as out of the box they might sound, however, they are very fast and efficient. And the most important thing that we learned, that they actually impose less impact on the community. Can you imagine talking to residents and telling them that the no parking sign in their street is just going to be up for 1 day maximum rather than 3 months for open trench? So that is just something that we looked into. In these advanced, we encourage and we welcome these advanced technologies. We worked with the utility companies, we coordinated with them, we sat down with them through multiple meetings at what works for you and what works for the city, came up with standard guidelines and maybe approved details, made permitting easier for them, and that led into reducing cost of installation for utility companies. And that means reducing the service costs for the residents of Los Angeles, the constituents. And that was technically cutting the red ribbon for a faster and more efficient broadband expansion with less community impact, which was huge. People are happy, and that's what we want. They are getting connected, and they're happy because their communities are getting less impacted. So that's the goal, and that's what we're pursuing. We're constantly looking into improve, and to maybe next year we see something's better coming up, and but that's our main goal, and we're just going to pursue that.
So all of you touched a little bit on digital equity. So if we think about digital equity, making sure that folks have access to devices, making sure that there's infrastructure, making sure that once there's access to those devices, that the folks understand digital literacy, how to use those devices. Maybe Bruce, do you want to start talking a little bit about what the digital divide looks like in your community and how the lack of infrastructure may factor into that digital equity plan?
Thank you. We learned a lot during the pandemic. I think a lot of municipalities did, about where we were short when it came to connectivity and coverage. Our school district was very creative. They actually put wireless on their buses, and they parked their buses in different areas. But that was eye-opening for me, because I knew fiber could resolve a lot of these situations. And so for the town of Queen Creek, the rapid growth is such that not everyone's getting access to the best benefit that they could receive when it came to digital access. And so that's something that we've worked hard on for the community, and we knew we needed to do it rapidly. So some of the things that we changed our standards for trenching, similar to City of Los Angeles and Alexandria, to micro trenching. We allow that. As city manager, as the mayor knows, we create words when we do our business. The other thing I worked on with my council is nano trenching, which is kind of the rapid connect that Crown uses. We put that in our standards. We eliminated our right-of-way fees for access to the right-of-way, and the feeling there is our taxpayers have already paid for that right-of-way. Why are we charging someone to use that when it's going to provide a service to the community? We also created a blanket permits for these industries so that they don't have to come back for a separate permit for a project when they already have designed and presented those in the community. We've also created a budsman for the industry to connect with so that they have a point of contact. And the last thing that really helped for us is we allowed our technology companies to jump the line per se in permitting. So if they submit a permit or a plan, they actually get reviewed first before all the other ones. That also helps getting that connectivity quickly. So when you think of where we were at 3 years ago to where we are at now, it sounds like a long time, but it really isn't. It's actually, we've been able to shorten that connectivity and that digital access for our residents.
Other thoughts from the panel on sort of how infrastructure factors into the digital divide or digital equity plans in your jurisdictions?
Sure. And I know you spoke a little bit about this in LA, but I think similarly, we started by leveraging sort of data. We got to know where the problem is first. And so we have in our community, we have an IT commission, which is a group of volunteers, many who have backgrounds in this space, but then others who may be directly impacted by the existing divide. And we had them work with our staff in transportation and environmental services, staff within our Department of project deployment. We had them work as well with our IT department, really to do some mapping on kind of what does the divide look like in Alexandria. And I think that was huge for us because now when we are in conversations with the industry, we've been able to say in our agreements, like, here are our targets. Here are the neighborhoods where we most need support and where we don't have existing infrastructure. Here's where we want to go in the next 5, 10 years or more, and been able to execute partnerships that say, if you can start in that area, we can accelerate our processes. Or if you can help us meet this goal, here are the things we can do to try and make it easier for you in working with us. I think the other thing that the data has helped us with is really figuring out if that's the goal we want, then where are the places where we might need to be more flexible and open to new technology. I can tell you when the conversation first started about Rapid Connect, myself and the other members of my council, we are not broadband experts. This is not the area where many of us have been trained in. And so when you're using terms like rapid deployment, micro trenching, small cells, all of these different things, that's not something we know about. And so when staff comes to us and staff says, well, we have concerns, we're looking at them like, okay, well, then we should have concerns too. Like, help educate me on these things. I had the opportunity to go out with some of the members of the Crown Castle team and actually see firsthand for myself, like, oh, this is what it means when they talk about this. This is how this could help me achieve our equity goals. This is in a neighborhood where we have some of our greatest issues, whether that's parking, flooding, other concerns. If they were able to use this technology, we could serve that community better. So I think it's also helping kind of paint the picture sometimes for your elected officials on like, what is behind this? Why is it needed? And then ultimately, how is it going to help you reach that resident that's currently not being reached?
Thank you. Nazila, anything else on that particular?
I just want to add that the reason that basically we had this gap, or we have all this gap, is also the cost of fiber deployment. And in Los Angeles is a congested city. It is a busy city. A lot of coordination is involved, and then also there's just a lot of utilities. So, it's just conventional methods which not work all the time. And we had to come up with an idea of just, overcome all those challenges and reducing the costs, just because, and as Bruce said, during COVID, we noticed that a lot of students in underserved communities, they rely on their cell phone to get connected. And attend school online. So that was a huge problem. So those are the factors. It's just the cost. And because of the condition of the streets, not all the streets are in good condition. We have to be innovative. We had to come up with ideas how to basically expand this broadband to close this connectivity gap. We had to help people, workers, students, families, hospitals, to have access to faster network. And that's what technically helped us. And basically, that's how we tackled it.
Thank you. So there's a lot of folks in the audience from other fiber providers, fixed wireless providers. You have local jurisdictions here. Do you want to share some of the best practices? I know we've talked a little bit about that working relationship, but what are some best practices for other providers on how communities can facilitate that sort of collaboration between the policy side and the permitting side, like DOTs, to make sure that these projects get completed efficiently?
In Los Angeles, we learned that early and ongoing coordination is a key factor. We are huge in coordination. I mean, we're a big department. It's a big city, and there are a lot of staff. And I understand that some of the public sectors, they might not have enough staff, smaller cities, but early and ongoing coordination. We do have coordination in a higher level. We call it Los Angeles Substructure Committee meeting, but all the utility companies and telecommunication companies, they attend monthly, and we invite Department of Transportation, Metro Transit Authorities, contract administration, all the different departments that are involved in any type of work in city right of way, they attend. We answer any questions, we resolve any issues, and we also communicate any type of standard updates, anything new that we're coming up with the utility companies. We just don't publish things and approve things before we go through this route. It is just so important that we discuss it with them because it needs to work for them first. And also it needs to conform with our standards. So this is a standard we're putting together. Does it work? Does anyone have any opinion? So that's a higher level coordination. And we do also do coordination at the level just with utility companies themselves, with their liaisons or with their staff, to discuss any kind of issues early on to make sure that this doesn't cause any delay during construction. We definitely don't want to stop construction. And also we want to make sure that we answer any questions that they have right off the bat and not wait for anything else. And then also one of other major focuses that we had is have clear permitting guidelines. And I heard in one of the panels previously that they don't have that. And that's so important that we have clear guidelines. We have checklists that they follow. We do have standard plans for newer technology when they come in. Even if we don't have standard, we put together pre-approved details and pre-approved templates. So that makes permitting a lot easier rather than just a lot of back and forth. And then we discuss it with them, with the utility companies, that these are the things back and forth to make sure that they're good with it. So that makes plan check and permitting a lot faster. I understand putting together standards, it is time consuming, but that's an effort that is worth it. So we put together a lot of time to come up with these standards and these requirements just to make sure that permitting is faster and also the guidelines are clear. We also do streamline the permitting process. We do use sophisticated programs in our excavation utility permit. I'm so proud of that application because that application uses a lot of programming. And one of the huge one is we, everything that gets permitted in city of Los Angeles gets geocoded using a geocoder. It's an application that we input into our utility permit excavation application. So that makes our life and utility companies' life a lot easier because we know when you come in to permit in LA, we know what's in the street. And it is pretty accurate. It's plus minus 1 foot accuracy. So it is really accurate. So we exactly know where everything is when we permit. And that's a lot less work for utility companies for coordination and also minimizes the interruption to the existing substructures. And so these all are the efforts that we put together. We do and expedited all this permitting and the effort to make sure that these utility companies, they can work in LA in such complex city, but they don't have to face a complex permitting process.
I just want to echo that because I think you outlined many of the things we do in our community. I think it's all of that is necessary because the goal is let's get clear on our expectations from the very beginning. This shouldn't be a game of trying to figure out what each person wants. So we too have put in the checklist, the model templates, trying to have one primary contact. We're also now working on kind of an interdepartmental work group. So behind the scenes, we're aware of who all is touching these permits, who's interacting with the client, and are we all on the same page about what we're communicating. Also, we have a one dig policy in our city, recognizing a lot of different utility companies and others are using our streets. So how are we making sure that you may be in charge of working with our broadband partners, but you may be in charge of other partners, and how are we making sure that that's all coordinated and we're sharing? So I would say that. And then I would just go back to, I think I mentioned earlier, our IT commission. There are technical pieces of this, there are engineering pieces of this, legal pieces, but I think for us, being able to have a space where there's also resident voice has been helpful, because on the elected official side, the number one thing we're going to get are the complaints when they can't find a parking spot, when there's a delay, when a partner's no longer, when a partner's come into the community and they've promised all the things they're going to do as it relates to deployment, and then several months go by and folks aren't seeing that happening. And so I think being able to have other people in that room to kind of think through, oh, this is what I'd like to understand for communication, or these are the civic associations you should go talk to when you're thinking about this. I think that has also been helpful to try and create a process that I don't think slows it down because it leads to that clarity in the beginning, but I think makes it a better experience for all of the people at the table.
Just a couple other things I recommend, and this is on the industry side. When you pull a permit, don't sit on it, meaning do the project that you're doing, because once again, our elected officials, at least in my municipality, understands all the permits that are being pulled, and they like to brag on behalf of the industry everything that you're doing in the right of way, and why is that may be impacting them, but for a better result. And then on the back end, once the project's completed, I think the industry could do a better job of communicating what they just did and the impact to the resident, at least in municipalities. We spent X amount of dollars, usually millions of dollars, to do something, to connect. And now tell that story. Go to the council meeting. Everyone has the right to speak at a council meeting. Share what you did, or connect with myself or an elected official. Say, we'd like to do a presentation to share kind of what we did, so that the residents understand how their lives have been improved by that connectivity that they've just received. Share the stories of the family that didn't have any connectivity, that couldn't do virtual school because of that, because they didn't have that access, and now that they do, and have them speak on your behalf. Those are the things that I think will help as we interrupt the residents for that small time when you're digging in front of the home, that they understand exactly what's going to be happening, and then you tell that story. I think that's something that we could do better.
If I could just pick up on one piece you were saying about telling the story, I think it's also thinking about who those unlikely partners might be. Just before coming here, I was speaking to our police department for recognizing women in law enforcement as part of Women's History Month. And I said, I have to run out because I have a panel that's focused on broadband. And somebody said, oh yeah, that's going to make the smart traffic lights. And somebody else turned around, they're like, what are you talking about? And somebody else was like, no, did you see on the city's website, there's a whole smart mobility thing. And it was this whole sharing back and forth of how all of a sudden, like being able to have this smart mobility program is going to be something that our police officers are going to be able to use in order to do their job better. And I would have never thought of them as advocates for this work, but I honestly, on the Uber ride here, somebody emailed me and was like, where do I find out about this program? So I think it expanded my understanding of like, yes, we've got to talk about the students and the families, but I think there's also a way to be thinking about what are the other departments that are going to benefit from the infrastructure and the technology that we're trying to move forward, and how do they also become champions for the ways in which we can, better serve our residents through this work.
All excellent points. At this point, are there any questions from the audience? Questions for our esteemed panel of local experts? Okay, I have one more question. So you touched on households that lack a wired connection that may be relying exclusively on a smartphone. We see that, according to Pew, it's about 15% of households that don't have a wired connection, and so their reliance on their smartphone is, that's the internet for them. And we didn't really touch on wireless broadband. So I was just curious if you all have heard or have worked with, wireless providers, or how you see wireless fitting into the ecosystem of broadband access and availability in your jurisdictions.
Just to answer that question, something that we've been working with Crown Castle and the Rapid Connect is for that purpose. One of the things that we did to prepare for this change is we purchased all of our light poles from our electric provider so that we can reserve them for these type of projects, and so that they could connect into the electric grid a lot easier. And that's one way to get the projects done a lot quicker. But we have Crown coming through our downtown area that had some low capacity, and that should be improving once that project's completed. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts on wireless broadband?
Well, as I mentioned, wireless, like small 5G cells and fixed wireless, is necessary in depending on exactly the location. It's not like a one method fits all at all, and especially in big cities. I'm pretty sure everywhere else. So it is important to basically look into the wireless options in the areas that laying fiber could be expensive and could lead into the increase of the cost of service. And I think City of Los Angeles use mixes of it. I mean, it's mostly a question for telecommunication company. I'm on the permitting side, but I feel that that's the approach they take as well, as to decide between which method. But I think, again, where it's going to be costly, maybe they need to look into small 5G services and then also fixed wireless solutions.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Oh, we have one question. Thank you, Stacy.
My question. Well, I have been working in these new technologies. It's been a few years already, and I want to just say that just an honest opinion that nothing is easy from the beginning, and nothing's perfect. So when you deploy a new method in your community, don't expect that it's gonna be looking perfect off of the bat. There's so many things that you need to work on. When I meet with other cities, I already met with a few other cities and shared my experience in deploying Rapid instead of Los Angeles. I tell them honestly what worked for city of LA and what didn't work, and it could be different for their city, road conditions and different things that are different factors. So it is important to have an open mind. You are in a technology AI era, and you can't resist. I mean, you either gonna get on the boat or just become like a old school traditional city. And then leaders of the Los Angeles, like my city engineer, he is a tech savvy person, and he's so open in exploring different opportunities. And so pilot the method and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. As a civil engineer, I was present at so many of these locations that Crown Castle piloted, and it wasn't that off of the bat. We worked with them, just say, okay, how about changing this? How about changing that? And it was through a major collaborative effort that we came up to all the things that we have right now. I just want to be where we are right now with Crown Castle, and we're not stopping. We're constantly working with each other. It's just the available team that we have, and they do have available that they work with us. They are just one phone call away. It's just something. So we're comfortable, like, and because we understand that something that works for the utility companies works for us as well. It's just that it is just a mutual agreement between us. It is not something that just because this is a new technology, we're going to stop it. And then if you think about all the traditional methods and you think about them, have they really been working well for you? Because we had a lot of issues and struggles with open trench, like our trenches were failing. Streets were closed for months, for years. Elected officials were involved. No one was happy. But, are you willing to give it a try for something that might work for community better and also impact your community? You're talking about, like, for example, like a real life example, like Department of Transportation reviews for major open trench excavations could take up to 6 months or years. But for faster technology, could be just a few weeks. But we also educated them. Like, I personally sat down with Department of Transportation with our inspectors that they go out there, explain the method to them. Like, I was present at some of those pilot programs to just explain how everything is basically being placed. Crown Castle was there, but I was there too, because I'm on their side, so I can just explain it to them, and okay, this is how it works. So maybe this review should take less than six months or a year. So it's just being open and give it a try, and I don't think it would hurt.
I guess I would just add, when I think about my role as mayor and the role and responsibility that we have on the council, it is truly to make sure that everyone can thrive in our city. And I think the technology we're talking about today touches every one of my biggest challenges, from housing to transportation to public safety, education. And so I think when I talk to my residents about this, I say, I owe it to you to explore opportunities to figure out how we better address these issues. And this is one tool. We don't have to roll out on every street tomorrow, but let's try with a pilot. Let's put in some performance metrics and let's evaluate as we go so we can make sure we're accountable to addressing the concerns that you might have. I think it's also, we've been really strategic in where we're deploying first. So one of the places where Crown Castle and Rapid Connect is happening is in the heart of Old Town. If you've been to Alexandria, the heart of Old Town, we are a historic city. That is our crown and jewel, and it is important for our residents, but it's also where most people come to visit and have their best experience with Alexandria. And so being able to do it in a place where we would probably have the greatest pushback, and to say, but look at how minimal disruptions there were. When we look at our historic infrastructure and our brick roads and all of these other things, there was no disturbance to that. And I think being able to start sometimes in the hard places to get that buy-in so we build ambassadors for other places is important. I think it's also been helpful to shift the mess. Like right now we're talking about budget and taxes and economic development, and being able to say we can't bring in new businesses, we can't bring in new revenue if we don't have, a strong connected network here in this city. And so this is all part of it. So I think those have been the messages that have worked in our community.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And not much more to add other than just the continued education of the right individuals in those municipalities that this is a partnership in order to get these things over the finish line. And once the municipality understands this is a partnership, then everything else falls into place.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.